226th Contact Friday, February 3, 1989, 12:07 p.m. Pages 450-460. Quetzal says, on your day, I am to deliver special greetings and wishes to you from all who are known to you. Billy says, pay everyone my heartfelt thanks. I am very delighted that they all think of me. But what about your time today? Is it enough that you can answer some questions for me? Quetzal says, I am not in a hurry, if you mean that. Billy says, exactly. Then I can just start with the questions? Quetzal says that you can. Billy says, you once said that solar radiation is dangerous for humans because sunburn arises from over-radiation on the unprotected skin, which is clear. But at the same time, you also mentioned that black cancer develops from it even if the sunburn would only repeat itself in a minimal form. Moreover, it doesn't matter, as I recall, whether it would only be 10 or whether it would be 50 or more years after the first sunburn. In any event, the first sunburn of the skin plays the leading role because the factors were based on the fact that the black cancer or skin cancer could be triggered. So far, this is clear. However, you also said something about artificial light sources that are just as dangerous as solar radiation. Unfortunately, you then gave no other explanations about this, which is why I want to ask you about it now. Quetzal says, yes, your explanation is correct, because I really gave no explanatory remarks regarding the addressed. So listen, then artificial light is harmless just as little as also solar radiation. Also, every artificial light emits radiations that are harmful to health, whereby the most diverse illnesses can then be triggered, like, for example, various forms of cancer. However, all sorts of nervous disorders as well as cell variations, asthma, headaches, nausea, muscle aches, memory impairment, reproductive damage, and concentration damage as well as various other ailments can occur due to excessive artificial light rays and artificial oscillations. Artificial light can, therefore, have a very negative and dangerous impact on the health of humans, and of course, the light intensity, radiation intensity, and oscillation intensity are of importance. In order to counteract this evil, it is necessary that the light sources are constructed and secured in such a way that the health hazardous factors do not appear. Billy says it will, however, still take a long time before that is realized here on Earth and something is done about it. With us, the erroneous acceptance prevails that a lot of light would be health-promoting, etc. Quetzal says that is, in principle, also correct, but that only applies when the health-endangering factors of artificial light sources are turned off. And as you say, it will still actually take a long time before the earthly scientists responsible for this will recognize the stated facts. And it will still take much longer before the decisive ways and means are found to produce harmless artificial light. Billy says that probably won't be in this century and millennium because everything is probably still very distant future music, right? Quetzal says that is correct, my friend. Decades will still pass before the insights relating to this mature. And it will still take a very long time before the means and ways are found to eliminate the harmful factors of artificial light. The same applies to electricity. Billy says that probably means that also the oscillations of electricity on humans and probably also on animals and plants, birds, fish and insects, etc. produce pathogenic effects. At the same time, I think of electromagnetic waves, as these come from power lines or electric lines as well as from electrical appliances and radio equipment as well as transmission towers for radio and television, etc. Is this meant by your reference to electricity? Quetzal says that is correct. In the coming time, however, the whole thing will still increase because the progress will bring with it that small, portable communication devices, which will then be called mobile devices or mobile phones and so on, will become mass-produced items for the Earth people. Consequently, there will only be few who won't then equip themselves with such devices, which will very often find only pointless uses. The whole thing will cause a technological progress epidemic and will cost many human lives. This, on the one hand, through the dangerous radiation emitted by the devices and, on the other hand, also because these devices will be used irresponsibly at every impossible and possible opportunity, like when driving cars, etc., by what means attention and control are weakened and fatal accidents, etc. are caused. Billy says damage is the price of unreasonableness. However, it will then surely be denied by the manufacturers of such mobile phones that these devices emit harmful radiations. Quetzal says that will be the case for a long time because the responsible persons won't want to let their business with such devices be ruined. Therefore, they will let falsified analyses be produced by notable places with bribes, which should prove that the radiation of the devices is harmless. Billy says I can vividly imagine that. But now tell me, it wasn't very long ago that we talked about wars, etc., and you told me that I should compose writings around the turn of the millennium, which have to be directed against an impending war. This is because a certain U.S. president named Bush Jr. will want to launch a war in Iraq, in order to get to the oil there as well as to exact revenge for the war which his father will bring, at the beginning of the 90s, over Iraq, and which he will lose, as you said. Outside of our open conversation, you also said that this Bush Jr. was or had been a drunkard and is now turning to sectarianism, and that he becomes of the delusion that he has to clean the earth of Islam, so to speak, as God's avenger and as God's representative. If I remember correctly, you called him an unscrupulous and degenerate good-for-nothing, who is valid in the eyes of his father as a zero and a failure. With the Iraq war that he wants to allow to be released, if I also remember correctly in this respect, you said that this would be, at the earliest, in March of the year 2003, from which World War III could result under certain circumstances, or the preliminary work for it with this Iraq war. The coward, once he has come to power, wants to prove to his daddy that he is not a zero and not a failure, and that he can very well exact revenge and retaliate for his dad's war failure. And now the long and short of it, through Bush Jr., whom you have also called a madman, will the war now actually break out in the year 2003 or not? You later mentioned the month of March, which would be especially precarious in that the war can actually no longer be avoided. In this respect, do you now have more insights through your foresight, or does it simply remain with your given information? Quetzal says I have, in fact, gained further insights in the meantime, and these are unpleasant. The war will be inevitable through the criminal irresponsibility and power obsession of the American President, George W. Bush, and will already secretly begin through the invasion of Iraq and through the bombing of superior anti-aircraft defenses in the early evening of the 18th of March, 2003, which will officially be denied, however. The beginning of the military attack of the American armed forces with the rocket attack on Baghdad will first become official, however, on the date of the 20th of March at 5:33 am Middle Eastern Time. The first wave of the real large-scale attack, however, will be several hours later, which will have, in its entire extent, such an impact as has never been the case before in any war on Earth. With this, the newest, most modern heavy weapons will be used, such as rockets and bombs, which will be of extremely accurate target precision and cause great destructions, and by which also many people will die. However, neither the war criminal rulers of America nor those of Iraq will care about this, as well as not those of England and Australia and all others who will irresponsibly participate in this war. Billy says, and Bush, this war criminal, will then, of course, be called to account just as little as also all those who will move with him in the same direction and be equally guilty in every respect as he himself, for if the criminal pack wins, then they are not regarded as war criminals, as this is usually just so on Earth, but as victors and heroes. Quetzal says that is correct. These are victors and heroes of very dubious reputation, who are truly criminals against humanity as well as tyrants, despots, dictators and terrorists, and who, indeed, are the same as those who are accused of evil by these war criminals, some of whom are known to you from an earlier time. Billy says, I know,